Good evening and welcome. It's lovely to see everyone over here, and thank you for joining today. I hope you've had a chance to take a look at these instructions. Just quick things that will make today's experience a positive and calming one. I'd like to start off today's session, and we've got a great topic ahead of us. If we may just close our eyes and arrive for a couple of seconds here, just taking deep breaths in and out. And let's show our gratitude for the time that we will spend together. I honor the place in you in which the entire universe dwells. I honor the place in you which is of love, of truth, of light, and of peace. And when you are in that place in you, and I'm in that place in me, we are one. And it is on that premise that I'm actually formally changing the pictorials for the first time in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. We've been doing the read concept for the last 3 sessions. So today we're switching, and guess what we're switching to? Something very important to me, and that is the relationship between the sun and the sunflower. So before we go to our moving opening practice, I thought I would share some really amazing thoughts about the relationship between the sun and the sunflower, some of which you might know. But in the Buddhist religion, the sunflower is actually representative of the human quest for enlightenment and self-realization. And as we all know, when little baby sunflowers open in the morning, they naturally face east. They look for the sun and they naturally face that way. And so I've been intrigued with sunflowers without knowing any of this for the last 3 decades. It's my favorite flower. I don't know why. I'm just very drawn to it right from the beginning. But here are some of the things that across different cultures, sunflowers represent. They represent hope, positivity, devotion, faith, purity, and loyalty. All of these things, and they're explained very nicely in terms of why each of these things are associated with the sunflower. But here's the trivia that we'll cover off later, is why does it face east? I know everyone will say, well, that's where the sun is, but yeah, so what? So we're gonna actually come back and answer that question a bit. For now, I'd love it if you can join me by standing up. We normally start these sessions, I had requests from last week that we start with the Tai Chi practice. And so I've picked a really special song that I haven't played in a really long time, but I used to teach Tai Chi to this song. And it also is sun themed. It's called The Center of the Sun. So if you would just join me on a floor that has some grip. If you're wearing socks, I advise that you take them off because you're going to be sitting pretty wide stance and low the whole time. And I hope you enjoy this. So join me here. Just make sure you can see me. We're going to arrive in a wide stance. So our feet are about 2 strides apart, or more if you can handle it, but at least 2 strides apart. And our toes are facing out at 45 if that's comfortable for you, or at 60, okay? And just get comfortable there. This music is actually about how much chaos and hurt can be caused in relationships or by people around us. And how it is amazing that if we stay focused on the center of our sun, nothing can hurt us. So, on that note, and empowering you to exude all of the hope and positivity and devotion, let's take a deep breath. Inhale and gently exhale. In Tai Chi, all our movements are extremely soft, light, nothing deliberate. I know some of you had a fantastic workout today at 6 o'clock. Inhale and exhale. are going to swoosh in front of us. It's a very flowing movement. You can just sort of say, hey, there's a canvas in front of me and I'm just going to paint. Following your palms with your eye gaze. And inhale, exhale. We're not bouncing up and down. You notice that I stay in a straight line here, going side to side. It's quite a workout for the inner thighs, for those of you who did do class at 6 o'clock today. Time as you gather, inhale and place that energy around you down. Coming back to center, inhale and over to the other side and exhale. Just keep watching, and when you feel comfortable, just do it on your own. Keep going.
Young boy in the market sees the girl alone, and asks her, have you lost your way home? She said,
this is about breath and movement, so we fill each movement with an inhale, a full inhale and a full exhalation, and exhale as you go. One more time, there's a waterfall. Inhale, exhale. One more time. Very, very slowly, let's place that down. And just hold the palms in front. Excellent. Great. Let's come sit down. The chat's open and I welcome you. I know this is a webinar style thing, so we're not chatting actively with each other. That whole idea is to keep it really nice and calm through this next hour. But the chat is really there for any questions you might have, or just there's going to be a lot of opportunities where I prompt you to share with me. If you have any concerns or anything, you can also use the chat for that. Okay. So generally these sessions have started taking a certain cadence. I tend to start with a moving meditation because it really just helps people get up and change up the pace at which they're doing something or try something quite different. Especially the ones that we're doing in the afternoon on Fridays, we're finding that a lot of people have been sitting at their desks at work, and it really helps to get up and do something quite similar to what you just did. So the theme that we always have a theme that some topic or some teaching that we'd like to cover off. And so today is going to be about relationship agility. For those of you who joined us last week, we had a great session, 2 days, and there was a lot of interest in what it means to have mental agility. And so this is a good follow-on to that. Before I jump to that, I just want to throw this up here for those of you who are joining for the first time, to share with you that this little venture of mine, the Envi mission, is really about bringing self-responsibility, self-leadership, focus, clarity, and composure, as well as human sustainability into our communities, into our schools, and in every one of you. So that is what I wake up in the morning aspiring to do. Now, I will be actively dialoguing with you. So here's your first question, and please do participate. And as I always say to people, there isn't any right way to articulate stuff. So whatever comes to mind, whatever feels right, please go ahead and share here. So the first question is, what is relationship or relational agility? And if you could just throw in a few words or a line to say, to me, it means this. That would be great. Let's get that started there first. Yeah. Did somebody say it was going to be easy? It wasn't going to be easy, was it? Actually, I'm not going to make your brain hurt too much. So, anyone who wants to jump in? Evolving as you go in your relationship. Very good word. Evolving, as in always changing. Thank you. Recognizing each other's differences. Very good. Yes. And the important word there being recognizing. Because those also tend to be in flux decade after decade. We all kind of shift as we get older, and we almost have to stay ahead of what's changing now, what are our differences now versus before, and then you continue to evolve along those lines. Supporting each other's values in a way that supports your own. Yes, so that is also agility, right? Because that also requires you to shift what you need to support from decade to decade. That changes. Well, what we cared about in our 20s is not what we care about maybe in our 40s. And so you also have to shift as your partner or your friends' values are also changing. What I like about that is there's this mutual support, right? In a way that supports your own. Not so easily done, by the way, if you have different values. Good one. Could it also mean less complaining? Perhaps. If you were fully supportive, they probably wouldn't be complaining. Working together. Yes, working together. And so here's everybody's question though, right? Like, for us to work together, two of us have got to want to try, right? And sometimes in relationship agility, it's very challenging for us because you may be trying to show agility, but the other person may not be. Thank you for those thoughts. Really good start here. So here's some textbook definitions. Oh, and there's a question here. What is a relationship? No feelings are final in a relationship. True. So I hesitate to come to conclusions. Yeah. So feelings are always evolving in a relationship. If this is a long-term relationship, as I just said, you kind of go through very many different phases of growth. And so feelings will always be in flux. They're never final. But in order for you to grow to your potential and the other person to grow to their potential, you do need the other person who you're with to evolve with that. So there isn't a sort of a point of conclusion. It's more like, as somebody just said, it's an evolution. It's an ongoing journey. So here's a couple of definitions that might actually resonate with you. Relationship agility is the ability to change and evolve, which we've just covered off very nicely in your answers. The ability to change and evolve how we relate to each other. So your ways of communicating, the ways of complaining, perhaps, the ways of working together. And then requiring the integration of many other aspects of yourself, the way that you communicate, the way you show compassion, the way you show your truth, the way you respect, the way you love has to evolve. And as two people learn to play that, it sounds complicated, doesn't it? We all do the hard work. And so then when there's an effective integration of that, then we're able to see the agility in a relationship. Here's one that I really like. And this is the ability to observe and understand your own inner workings first. So I love this definition because it kind of breaks down the stages, right? It is your ability to first observe and understand your own inner workings so that then you can pivot and co-create with others. So we always tend to sort of look at relationships in terms of, well, how can I better support you? But I think this journey starts with a very solid quest and understanding of yourself first. And it isn't a one and done thing either, right? So once you can do that and you understand yourself, this is about self-awareness. then you are able to pivot and co-create with others. And I believe that when your self-awareness is in a good place, then it becomes easier to adapt and co-create with others. We'll talk a little bit about that pivoting part. And so for me, and I know for many of you here, all of this has to serve a purpose, but this really is about the greater we that comes after you first look inside. Then you can co-create with others. But the end objective at the end of the day is your partner, your marriage, perhaps your family, and then your extended family and your community. And so that's the we there, even in your workplace, for example. So let's have you share here now, as I've just shared those two definitions with you. And when you think about that, what one thing do you observe of yourself that you know shows you are not agile in a relationship? And this is easier done when you kind of think about a relationship that is pretty foundational to you, or a friendship that's very important to you, where you find that you're not showing agility at times. What do you observe yourself doing when you know that you're not doing that? What are you experiencing? Maybe perhaps the behavior that you're showing, anything. What do you observe of yourself? I can tell you right now, myself, that I have a lot of work to do when I feel as if I'm not being heard. And if I'm not being heard in a particular relationship, then I have a tendency, because that's something that has been innately in my life from the very beginning, is that thinking that if you raise your voice, then you're going to be heard. And so it's a behavioral thing. And so for me, I don't find that that's being very agile, because that's not really thinking about what the other person is receiving or is responding to. It's just something you want to do. So I hope that's a good example. Oh, I see people are afraid to own up. No pressure. That's part of observing as well, self-observation. I really got nothing here. I'm trying. It is, I feel the same way with kids. Falguni, I'm surmising that has to do with raising your voice. If it is, I'm with you. uh, Importance. Um, what is one thing that you observe you're doing when you don't feel that you're being agile in a relationship? While maybe you can explain what importance means in that context. To get my way, keep saying, oh, repetition. Yes, don't we all do that, right? We feel anxious at times, in perhaps with one person in particular, that we're not gonna get our way. And so what we think is that if we keep saying it over and over again, my husband always tells me, he's like, you already said that. You don't have to repeat yourself. And so we keep saying that because we think that either the person will hear the third time or they'll forget, perhaps. So that's not showing a lot of agility, because they're not responding to that behavior. Anyone else? Any other behaviors that we tend to show? How about some of us just go silent? Just kind of look away, withdraw, right? Not say anything at all, and perhaps even hold our emotions inside is not showing agility either. Oh, we lose focus. Yes. We display anger. Correct. And when we go silent, we tend to harbor everything that we feel. So the withdrawal is another way in which we're not showing agility, because we don't want to communicate, and therefore the person across from us is kind of left there, without the tools to move on, right? Kind of stunts the growth. All right, so these are good examples that we've just come up with. Very good. So then I ask, why is that important? Why is it important, this stuff about, evolving, working together, even observing what happens to us when we're in a relationship and we're starting to do things like silent treatment? So why is it important that we understand this? Any reasons why we think that it's super important that we be able to overcome some of these behaviors or things that we do, thinking we're going to get, things where we want to get them to? Any ideas why that's important? There has to be a reason why we're sitting here having this conversation about being agile in relationships. Why is it important that we are? What's it going to do for us? What's it going to do for our interactions with others? Strengthen them, correct? Yes. It is going to strengthen relationships if we're courageous enough to continue to build agility in our interactions, right? Because it's our way of showing that we care enough and that we're willing to try different things. Any other reasons why this is important? Let me share a few. The first reason we do this is because it helps us build self-awareness. The very notion that we actually have to become introspective in order to build agility enables the mind to say, I need to look inside. And when we look inside, as we have covered off in the past two sessions, when we talked about what is mindfulness, right? We said that there are so many different channels in the mind that we could leverage. But when we become stuck in our ways with our own version of the story, we tend to be only using one aspect of our brain. And so the practice of self-awareness enables us to use our full brain, our emotional side, our intuitive side, our logical brain. So there has to be a way that we build self-awareness. And this is a good reason to actually build agility, because it helps us build our relationship with ourselves. The second is that agility forces us to look inside and then prioritize our responses. So when we look inside, we then develop an ability to ward off, observe and ward off things like judgment, bias, past patterns, and here's a big one, emotion. I was just listening to a talk last night by Sadhguru, very short one, but a very important one, in which he said something pretty controversial when he said, in your relationships, try to demote emotion. In other words, what he was saying is you can run your relationships first with your logical brain and your sensibility, warding off all these things. But when your emotion starts to control the conversation, then you've pretty much lost the battle. And some of us might argue at that, saying, well, if we care a lot, that's an emotion we want to show. Yes, you can. But when you drive with emotion, that's when you lose equanimity. And that's the third bullet there. So it's important that we do build agility, because it also helps us understand how to respond with equanimity. What does that mean? All of those things over there, right? Showing composure, showing clarity, not being over emotional, taking responsibility for ourselves and for everything that's happening around us. So that equanimity is a third reason why we want to build agility. It helps us show authenticity with compassion. So you can still be yourself, right? But you can be yourself and still express your story without making other people feel that their opinion might not be in the right place. And when you're able to be agile in relationships, you then actually can experience the full wisdom of the collective. What does that mean? In any given situation, I always say, we're here to interact with other human beings. So in community, at our workplaces, our children in school, there's a collective notion there. And so if you really want to experience the wisdom of being in the collective, it's important to be able to be agile. And from that comes the ability to be more creative, right? Because you can hear other people better. You can listen to what they're saying. You can connect dots better. So that's agility, right? When you're responding in a way that does all of these things, that's why it's important that we develop agility in every interaction we have. But at the end of the day, I would still say, so what? The end game is fourfold. Visibly get out of your own head first. right? When you show agility, you're actually getting out of your version of the story and you're looking at the other 60 versions of the story that are going on, and you have an ability to do that. And through that, you develop a reputation of credibility. You show integrity in everything that you say because you think through, not from your own lens, but from the other person's lens as well. And through that, you're able to expand your radius of impact. So many of you are out there making an impact every day in multiple people's lives. When you are more agile from a relationship standpoint, you actually can be far more impactful with people and with groups of people. And what is it for you? It actually means less stress, because relationship management is stressful. It is a stressful notion. It is this notion that you can build agility and the other person may have zero agility, and they may have zero understanding of it and zero intent to change. That's stressful. But if you can actually do all of those things, as in look inside, practice the mindfulness required to be agile, you won't be too attached and married to any one position. And that's actually very liberating. So share with me here, with a loved one or in your family or in a workplace, how have you cultivated agility? Just pick one instance where you've over time realized that your pivoting a certain way has actually bettered relationships. I see here less conflict, correct? Yes. So when we are agile, there is less conflict. I can't promise you that always. As I said, it depends who you're dealing with. But what you will experience is less stress on yourself because you will remain centered no matter where that person goes with it. While you're thinking about this question, I'll share that in the workplace, this one trait has really helped me as a leader. I've encouraged my teams to build agility as people by simply giving them the power to stipulate what performance means to them, how they want to show up at work as a team. And so they actually define their own values, and then they define their own communication patterns, and then they define the way that they're going to measure it themselves. And so you're giving them a lot of empowerment and rope. And as you do that, you're basically cultivating agility on the team because they themselves are now looking at each other and learning to work with each other without the interference of anyone of authority telling them how it needs to align with corporate values and it has to be a certain way and these are the behaviors. Well, sure, it's my job to do that, but giving them that rope has really helped them find their own identity in those relationships. Is this what happens at Envia with people in companies? Yes. So this is a trait that Envia is bringing to people in the part of the Aura experience, as well as in organizations when we work with teams. So that's a good question. Yes, that is true. So is anyone going to share with me how you're cultivating agility in your life? Give us some ideas. Something you do habitually now, you've realized that this shows that you can pivot, you can evolve. What are some of those things you do? This is not an easy subject. Some of the past ones, like last week, some pretty easy questions. We had a lot of input, but I know these questions really can cause you to stop and think. Change my patterns? Yes, because you're aware of your patterns. So that's a really great answer. You can't change something you're not aware of. So the very fact that you know that you're changing your patterns, whatever that habit or behavior is, there is an awareness first. That this is a pattern. I do this, and then this happens. If I behave this way, I have this result. What if I behave a different way? What is the new pattern? I think when you have kids, your relationship is constantly evolving as they evolve. True. Yep, because they're on a very big growth journey and rapidly. So what they value one day might not be the next. Yeah. Very good answers here. Thank you. use different communication methods, correct? Because every one of us responds to different types of communication. And, this is a very good one because we tend to say, you know what, I'm a very direct communicator. I have a style, this is my style. I tend to do it this way. I tend to, and so we're so stuck in the way that we prefer to talk and interact that we really are not learning to pivot depending on who the audience is. So that's a really good answer there. People are pivoting, Dipti, thank you. More patience. Cultivating patience creates agility. Very good. Giving other people space. Yeah. Instead of constantly repeating ourselves, perhaps we step back and give them a chance to sort of process what you're asking for. And then if it's been an hour, you can repeat yourself again. No, I'm kidding. But yes, giving other people space. Very good. Some really good answers here. Thank you for that. So here's some of the ways in which, I love this pictorial, by the way, because I find this pictorial, when it comes to sunflowers, tells you that, the lights there around the palm tells you that you actually have that power within you, right? To feel the softness, to feel the beauty, and be able to touch it. So I always have found that a lot of my agility, be it mental agility, and last week we talked about how mental agility played a role in my climbing mountains and learning how to climb mountains and what the various stages of a mountain can do to your mindset. So we talked about that. And I found that a lot of types of agility come from a mindfulness practice. And that's one of the things we do with our experiences, is teaching people what mindfulness practice works for them and serves them in their daily life. But a mindfulness practice informs and supports your agility with others, right? When you have a practice like that, it teaches you how to first observe and continue to observe and continue to evolve and strengthen your ability to observe. And once you can see things as clearly as you can inside, then you have the opportunity to start to reorganize those observations and prioritize them and decide what needs to stay for the present moment and what you can absolutely release. What doesn't need to have voice in any one particular moment. And that's what allows you to stay present. And then once you've released some of that stuff, the past and, what that person did to me and this person's habit of doing whatever and all that noise, then perhaps you have the energy, the right energy to activate a different type of behavior. So these 3 stages is what aura stands for. And so this habitual cycle that you can engage in throughout your day actually helps you be agile with everyone that you interact with, planned or not. This is a rather full slide. You don't have to read it all because I'm just going to talk to you. So the first thing was, these are multiple ways in which you can become more agile in relationships. Practice your mindful self-awareness in every moment. If you start a practice in the morning, I do mine in the morning, but if you start to build that practice, and you will start to see how that energy transfers itself throughout the day in everything you do. So practice that in every moment. Second, read the room. Know your audience, do your homework. If you're at work and you're going into a meeting and you don't know who the audience is, do the homework. Know who you're going to be talking to. When you walk in, read the room. And this too is very powerfully done if you have a self-awareness practice. Number 3, prepare ahead of time for possible outcomes. Not everyone is going to behave predictably on any given day, right? Especially if you're in the workplace. You just don't know what happened to that person last night, or you don't know what their predicament in general is. And these days, with the level of turnover that we have in workplaces, you also don't know who you're going to get the next day. So prepare ahead of time, but even then when you walk in, read the room. And how do we do that? How do we read the room? We listen first. We practice silence. We ask questions. We seek to understand the full picture without just kind of barging in and starting to advocate, preach, lecture, do the things that we think should be happening in this moment. Observing silence also means you get to step away and ask for time to reflect. That's a way you show agility. Something's really coming at you and rubbing you the wrong way. The answer is not to push back at all times. Maybe question, maybe ask a couple of questions so that you know you got it right. But at the same time, step back and just say, you know what, let me go think about that. Just give me a moment. And if the person is imposing, if they're pushing on you because they think you're deprioritizing it just because you asked for some time off, draw a boundary. Draw a boundary and just say, I just need some time to process this. That's agility as well. Don't emulate other people's behaviors because you think that that is the only way to get them to listen. Someone's shouting at you. Your shouting back is not the right thing to do. Perhaps you think that that's their language and you should use it back. But frankly, all you're doing is giving your power away. They could push you. They could not be yelling. They could be just using language that makes you feel uncomfortable, threatened, upset. The idea there is not to go into that ring with them with the same behavior, because you're preserving your own energy then. And last thing I'll always say, this is one I love to do, and it's really helped evolve agility in relationships, is I consciously, call me a glutton for punishment, I intentionally put myself in new and uncomfortable situations all the time. Okay, sometimes I don't know the full story. I don't know what's going to happen in that room. I don't know the subject matter, but I go in. So it could be a new activity that too plays with your energy, the way you handle stress in a new activity, a new type of interaction, a new meeting, a new subject, anything, just try to put yourself out there, because what it's going to teach you is there's nothing better than practice in the moment when you observe yourself in situations like that. Okay. All right, so we've got about 20 minutes, and today, so what I normally do is there's the theme that we covered today. By the way, the chat's there. If you have any questions or thoughts about what we just covered, I'd love if you could share those with me. It's really empowering because other people also may be having the same experience as well. So it's always good to just kind of step back and say, what did we just discuss? And here's how it's resonating for me. What is it making you rethink? Maybe there's a great takeaway there that you think was the single most important thing that you took away. You can share that right now. What was the one thing that you took away from today that you think tomorrow you're going to give it a go and see how that works? And while you're thinking of that, I will also ask you if you would like to now close up the practice with me in the last part of this session. We normally either do a breathwork practice and we finish up with a meditation. And as we finish up, you won't hear me sort of come back on and say thank you and all that, because it kind of breaks the energy. So this is sort of the last stage at which we will have this interaction together. So if there's any closing comments, questions, thoughts, takeaways that you'd like to share, this is the time to do it. In the last 2 weeks, we have been practicing something called box breath. And so at these sessions, I tend to introduce breathwork techniques very slowly. If you've never done breathwork before, people might tell you it's a little exhausting, but that's the whole point, is that you're learning to use a different muscle. I see here, there's a takeaway. Listen and learn from your audience, and don't respond in anger or shout if someone does that, but rather leverage a different way of responding. Correct. Don't emulate the same behavior, especially if it's not rubbing you the right way. So today, the box breath was a great one because it was a nice and easy one. If you've never done that, it's really great when you're experiencing very polarized feelings, either very, very, very happy feelings, and I always like to tend to move to the middle when I'm there, Or if I'm feeling very low and I want to come to the center. The box breath is a very simple technique where, we were counting breath in equal counts and sort of visualizing going in a square. Interestingly, that is a very simple practice. And with the Navy SEALs, that is the first breathwork practice they teach, because those guys are out there in very extreme, dire circumstances and all the time have to come back to the middle. So at some point, I will be building a breathwork practice with our participants where we will be bridging all of these practices together to create a sequence. Today, we're going to learn about something called the bellows breath. It actually hails from yoga philosophy. And for those of you who practice yoga and pranayama, it's also called Bhastrika. So Bhastrika is really great for reducing anxiety. And I picked it today just because I find it very powerful when we're in interactions with others that are causing us grief, causing us perhaps flooding from the past. If you've had some trauma and you're just all the time feeling like you're experiencing it all the time, coming back into your present moment, this is a great practice for that. And for this, I'm actually going to take my practice to the ground just now. And if you want, you can follow me onto the floor, making sure that if you have a yoga mat, you can sort of lie down if you'd like afterwards. Just give me a second and I'm just going to do that right now. Now, if you can see me, you can even pin me if that's better. I'm seated in a kneeling position. For some of us, this is not doable for any period of time because sometimes we have pain on the top of our feet. So sitting upright in a kneeling position, if that's permissible to you. If not, and you want to stay seated in your chair, that's absolutely fine as well. Just make sure both feet are on the ground flat and that your back is straight. Your shoulders are rolled back. In Bhastrika, what we're doing is we are taking a deep breath in and we're going to be pushing out with more force than a normal exhalation. And I'm just going to demonstrate. The palms are actually fisted. So it actually emulates the behavior when we are stubborn, when we're holding on to stuff. And so what we do is we take these fists and we line them up with our shoulders and we take the elbows and we tuck them into our waist. So this is how this is. And as I inhale, I'm going to take these hands up towards the ceiling. And it's not like a very light movement. This is a very sharp movement. I'm pushing up, grabbing a bar, an imaginary bar, and I'm pulling it back down. So when I push up, the fingers are very erect and alert and straight and tense, and then they're fisting and coming back down. I'm going to demonstrate. The inhalation is when the arms go up. So it goes like this. And I exhale when I come down. And you see how powerful that exhalation is. So we're inhaling, letting go. So our fingers are nice and wide and straight and tense, and you're letting go. And then you're fisting back up and landing back to where you started. We're going to do 15 counts 3 times. Okay, so that's 45 altogether. And it's not a slow movement. Okay, so the count is a pretty fast one. But to begin, I will slow it down so that you can stay with me. I like to do this movement with my eyes closed. So when you get comfortable with it, you can do the same as well. Okay, so I'd like you to close your eyes. Your fists are tightly placed beside the shoulder. Your back is straight. There should be no weight or burden into the base of the spine here. And just breathe normally here for a second. Just breathe normally, even observe. Maybe you want to bring that one friendship, one relationship that you're still kind of working on into your space. Just continue to breathe nice and soft. So just arrive into that space. And as sunflowers would, we approach this practice with a great deal of hope. Inhale and exhale, a great deal of optimism. I didn't even give you the answer. Just stay here with your eyes closed. I didn't even give you the answer as to why. I should have had a prize for this one. Why is it that sunflowers face east? It is a real freak of nature that not every plant has the ability to do this, because sunflowers face east naturally wherever they are. And then they have the ability to turn to the west as the sun crosses over. And so it goes something like this. The sunflower, actually, the stem of a sunflower has the ability to grow as needed in different parts of its stem. So if you picture the stem of a sunflower, it actually has the ability to grow in certain parts, which enables it to turn as the day goes by. Sounds agile to me. I didn't know that. And here's a reason why it faces the sun at all times. The heat is what insects are attracted to. Insects don't like to sit on flowers that feel cold. So the warmer a sunflower is, the more bees it attracts. And so it follows the sun. And so as a sunflower plant ages, it actually loses its ability to face the sun and follow it right through the day. Sounds a little bit like us humans. As we age, we tend to get stuck in our own ways, and it's hard to pivot. So it's important that we teach our children and our teenagers and our youth to learn to be agile from a young age, and that becomes a way of living. And so let's arrive again. I had to say that because if I didn't tell you the answer, I'd have to email it to you, and I didn't want to do that. So let's begin. So now we're going to do, at my count, we're going to do the first 15. Ready? Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Take a break here and just breathe normally. It's a very forceful movement. On the next one, I would ask that you just continue to practice with your eyes closed on my count, that your breath is very intentional, and your exhalation can even be out through the mouth to begin with. Initially, it's okay to do that because you're breathing out with such force and you're not used to it. Eventually, you want that breath to be coming straight from the nose. And as you exhale the negativity, you exhale the pain, you exhale the emotion that doesn't serve you in any interaction. If I get into an argument, if I feel disturbed, my energy is highly disturbed by any kind of interaction, I tend to come to this practice at any point during the day. Let's start again. So palms fisted besides the shoulder, straight back. And let's begin. In, out, in, out, in. And relax. Breathe normally and just observe what's happening in your brain after 2 rounds of that. You might feel your body temperature going up. I start to experience release. And from this, I see calmness. I've been teaching my 13-year-old this practice for a few years now. It's an easy one to teach children when they're feeling angry, upset, crying, even to get them to stop crying. Breathe normally. This last round, we're going to do an extra 5. And remember that every breath counts. So with full intention, let's bring our fists back down, up towards near the shoulders. Breathe normally and begin. And relax. Eyes are closed. There's a visible change in the prana, or the energy within, a change in the mental energy. So just take a gauge of where you are with your mind right now. And this time, taking a very deep, deep intentional breath in, into the belly and out. It's noteworthy that the Bhastrika breath comes from the chest, comes from the heart space. It's such a powerful forced breath that you push from the lungs. So unlike other types of breath, which we take deep into our root chakra or to the base of our spine, this one stays shallow. Just breathing normally and just observe any discomfort. I invite you to lie down if you feel like it. I'm going to stay here for instruction, but this is a great time to go into your Shavasana, lying down. And if you are, absolutely surrender to the earth and give it all your trust, that which carries you all day long. Unconsciously, let's become very conscious and intentional in our awareness of the ground that we walk on. Starting to really bring that breath nice and slow into the belly. Eyes are closed. Allow the face to soften. Just be aware of any clenching in the jaw. Just separate the upper and lower jaw. Even perhaps move the lips from side to side and release any tension below the ear. Your palms are either on your lap if you're seated, facing up. If you're lying down, they're on either side of your hips. Your legs are at least hip distance apart. And just be aware of maximizing the distance between the neck and the shoulders and just really separating those shoulder blades, allowing you to relax the mid-back, creating space around the spine. I invite you to take your gaze within up towards the forehead. The space between the eyebrows, the center of our awareness, is also the part of the brain where all of our creativity and inspiration comes from. Our objective is always to operate from that space. When we speak, we want to speak with inspiration and curiosity. When we problem solve, we also want to bring curiosity and creativity. And when we act, we want to act with the wisdom of the collective. Just keeping the focus there. And allowing the breath to just become more passive now. Back to its unconscious state as it serves us all day long. It is so existential from the time we are born to the day we die. It is there. It is important to acknowledge it and understand its power. Remain like the sunflower, humble, loyal, positive, devoted, and may you lead like the sun. Full of light, warmth, giving power to everything around you. I invite you to take one very, very long breath in.